Shalom. That is
Shalom, Alfred.
that is one of the few words that I know. But as I was mentioning a few years ago, a friend of mine gave me this message, which is the 72 names of God, or of Source. People have many different names, and for the reality, or for the force that is continuously creating the multiverse. And it is a unitary force. It is a force of unity consciousness, that we're all one, not a dualistic force, that we're separated one against the other. And especially at this time, when the Earth, the solar system, actually every 25,920 years, if this is the plane of the Milky Way galaxy, there's a big bump right in the middle, which is the black hole. Well, our solar system passes through the plane up and down once every twice during the 25,920 year cycle. And we're now passing through the galactic plane, the galactic equator again, our solar system. So what that means from an energetic point of view is that we are going through higher frequency and fields of galactic energy, which is now affecting the planet. And that has effects on the entire solar system and on our planet, geologically, seismologically, biologically, in terms of the biosphere, but also in terms of our consciousness. And at this time, there are many other cycles that are sort of coterminous, that are occurring at the same time. There's about a 60 million year cycle and a 265 million year cycle, which is occurring at the same time that we're going through the galactic equator. And that has to do with the sudden appearance and sudden disappearance of species, if you measure it over time. So we're in a period of great transition in our biosphere. New species spontaneously appear. Species tend to spontaneously appear and spontaneously disappear. And one of the species that may be spontaneously appearing is what we call Homo universalis, universal human, which is the next step, or the next evolution in Homo sapiens, the species that we are. And the definition of Homo universalis may be that human being whose DNA is more activated, instead of dealing only with the dual strands of the double helix. There's a capacity to have up to 12 strands, because that's how we were designed about 100,000 years ago by a galactic consortium of advanced light-oriented humans, the Pleiadians, the Alpha Centaurians, the Sirians, and others. So we're beginning now to come up to our blueprint, and it's precisely the energies as we go through the galactic plane. Those energies, they call them transposition bursts, are what can activate our DNA. We can show this in scientific experiments. For example, the Russian scientist Garayev showed that he could take a laser and point it through a frog,
Embryo.
an embryo into a salamander and transform the salamander into a frog, and vice versa, i.e., DNA can get transformed by what we call the source field. And the source field is a non-local, non-temporal field of intelligent, alive energy that people can call God. They can call it Source. It's the 72 names. So that's the direct contact. That's it, because God is not necessarily anthropomorphic. It's not necessarily a human. So it's a force beyond maybe a force beyond what we can even visualize. So some other scholars, like Dr. Carl Johann Kalaman, say that at this time also, because he's done a calculation from the beginning of the Mayan calendar to show that at this time, if we go to the portal, the interdimensional portal at the core of our universe, science is now discovering that there are many universes in the multiverse, the parallel universe. We don't know how many universes there are in the multiverse. Our universe is one of the universes, and at the core of our universe is an interdimensional portal through which one can go out into the rest of the multiverse. The analogy is that at the core of our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, which is one of many, galaxies in our universe, there is also an interdimensional portal which is classified as a black hole, and that has now been established by science after a 14-year study. And what's happening is that interdimensional portal at the core of our multiverse is now beginning to broadcast waves of unity consciousness. In other words, everything is one, rather than duality consciousness, which is I win, you lose. You see what I'm saying? It's me and the other is duality, and unity is we're all one. So those waves of unity consciousness are what it's mediated through the galaxy, through the galactic black hole. In our solar system, the interdimensional portal into our solar system is located in the sun. So that's why you see pictures of large spacecraft coming in through the sun, because it's an interdimensional portal. It's what we call, the physicist Nassim Haramein calls it a singularity. And so we are now individually, as minds, we are bathed more and more in frequencies of unity consciousness, which our minds and our brains, which are like radio transceivers, pick them up in different ways. But now what's occurring is unity consciousness. So anything that is not in unity and is still in duality is not going to be able to function. It's going to break up and go through breakdown, breakthrough, until it arrives at unity consciousness. And that's what's occurring in many systems. The world economic system, that's what's occurring in the world governance system, that's what's occurring in individuals. They're going through transformation. That's what's occurring in relationships, or families, and that's what's occurring in areas of the world like the Middle East, which is a very special area which has been focused on a lot of these issues for many, many years, and in which the unity of Source comes together and has come together in a strange duality. And so that duality is now working itself out. It's working itself out, and so why is it safe to be on the planet now? Why is this universe? Why do we live in a safe and abundant universe that gives us everything we want and need? Well, first of all of the people on the planet, probably 95% of them, are, I believe, maybe I'm too optimistic, are essentially possess human souls that are here, that are, we go through a cycle of birth, life, death, interlife, birth, life, death, interlife. And we know from the science of parapsychology, the studies of the interlife, both the systematic studies of reincarnation at the university level by, for example, Dr. Ian Stevenson of the University of Virginia Medical School, who has demonstrated through his studies of early childhood memories of reincarnation that is a fact of spiritual life. That's a scientific fact. It's not a question of belief. It's a question of scientific fact. And also now we have over 7,000 cases of hypnotic regression by Dr. Michael Newton and many other scientists that these are hypnotic regression to memories of the interlife. So we know what the human afterlife, what the interlife is like from a scientific point of view. Why? Because it's replicable. The scientific method is that if you have a standard laboratory protocol and replicable results, you're developing real knowledge. Well, that's what we have here. So we begin to have real knowledge of what occurs in the interlife and the afterlife. And
this is a real breakthrough.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you talk about that with people, some of them will say, "I believe it," or "I doubt it," or have you ever been there? Like, can you say something about it from your own experience? And I don't have answers for that because the memory of these things are blocked, totally blocked. So it's very interesting what you're saying.
Yeah. So we are now at that period where science and spirituality are coming together. They're coming together.
Definitely.
And where maybe some belief systems are evolving and transforming in a context of unity consciousness coming through. So that's the general kind of picture, which is a very optimistic picture. So the issue is then, and we know that many of the interdimensional forces, say the predatory extraterrestrial races that have been oppressing humanity for a long time, are now being driven off the planet by higher galactic forces. For example, there's very good evidence that over the past 10 or 11 years, we have now this year come to the end of the occupation of Earth by a very predatory alliance set of extraterrestrial races between the Orion Greys, who were abducting people, and the Draco reptilians that wanted to take over planet Earth. And so that agenda is over. And that's the agenda, for example, that was behind the Third Reich. That was really a fourth dimensional gray and reptilian agenda that
Like the Third Reich, like you're talking about the Second World War.
yeah,
That's
the
the
Greys,
Nazi, the
yeah,
Nazi.
yeah.
Okay.
That was really manipulated from the fourth dimension by the Orion Greys, who were fronting from the Draco reptilians. See, we're a race in the third dimension of time space, and so exopolitics, the sort of discipline that I practice, is the science of relations among intelligent civilizations in the multiverse. So we study, and I'm very happy that you've joined with us in founding Exopolitics Israel. And I want to invite any of the viewers right now. The best place to reach us is to go on Facebook and look up Exopolitics Israel, and then you can join in that group. And so from an exopolitical standpoint, our best information, and a lot of this is classified, so it's very difficult to get out of the secret state, is that we in 1930, around 1934, there was a secret treaty signed in the Roosevelt administration of the United States with the Greys, allowing them where they would transfer Grey extraterrestrial technology, kind of fronting for the reptilians, which could give a military advantage in return for the right to abduct humans for their genetic experiments. Now, it went far beyond genetic experiments. It went into like soul capture and a lot of very ugly stuff. People can go to exopolitics.com who are interested in this and read about this. That secret agreement was signed.
This is really frightening, for people who are, really first time.
But that's the past.
Getting
that's the past. That's the past. Yeah. In other words, that's over. The war against the Draco reptilian and the Orion Grey occupation of the planet is over. And the final offensive took place, was manifested in the August 23rd, 2011 earthquake. It's a very shallow earthquake, at 1/10 of a kilometer. It was later changed to be 6 kilometers, but it was 1/10 of a kilometer, centered in Virginia, but under Washington, D.C., in which the advanced human extraterrestrials of the Galactic Council came in and with frequency weapons destroyed the Grey and reptilian bases under Washington, D.C., and those bases were the mechanism by which the Greys and the reptilians had kept the U.S. government under Grey mind control. See, a lot of the humans have been under mind control. If we take the Third Reich, Adolf Hitler, not Nazi, they were under mind control of the Greys. It's an exopolitical occupation. In other words, it's like an occupying army, but you don't see it because they're in the fourth dimension. And I watched a very instructive movie the other night called Sophie Scholl, and it's about a young woman student who was a member of the White Rose student movement in Nazi Germany, and she distributed pamphlets then, which were against the, showing against Hitler. And she was caught at the university. She was tried, and in a 15-minute trial, and within a few hours after the trial, she was beheaded in a guillotine. Okay? Well, what happened was that the pamphlet that she distributed, a copy was smuggled out to Sweden and then to London, and then Eisenhower had millions of copies made of the pamphlet, which then the Allied forces airdropped over Germany. So it was a story of how her act then came back, and it was what the Nazis tried to oppress, that was dropped there. So that was at the height of the gray and reptilian occupation. And that occupation is over now, and now we're in the final phases of a planetary mop-up, just getting rid of those underground bases and forces that may still be here. That's the good news. That means that humans are no longer under this oppressive gray mind control of separation of one person against the other. And in other words, I see you as the other. You're not a human being. You're the other. Whatever stereotype you would project onto the other, that's it. But since the Greys and the reptilians were no longer under that mind control, and since the universal energy of going through the galactic plane now brings out unity consciousness, then it's very difficult for the forces of duality to get great human, to get great waves of humans into fear and into projecting the other. So that's kind of the engine that's driving this great wave of positive transformation. And that's the message that I'd like to bring to the people of Israel, because we all know from a political analysis that almost they were set up
Totally.
with the establishment of the state to put them right in the middle and to create this polarization. And in fact, on all sides, all humans, those of us who are connected to our deeper human souls, we feel unity, that everything is unity. Hey, listen, this is a paradise planet. Let's make it a paradise planet. So, long term, it's very optimistic. And for example, I spent a lot of time last year studying the, quote, UFOs around the Temple Mount. Do you remember those? That there was supposedly a UFO that came down on the over the Temple Mount
of Israel, in Jerusalem.
Yeah. And then and then people said, oh no, it's a fake, and then it's not a fake, it's a fake, it's not a fake. So whether it was a fake or it was not a fake, it gets people thinking about unity consciousness, because here you have the three major perceptual lenses, or people call them faiths: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all claiming the Temple Mount. So, but there's only one source field. So it's just a matter of the thousands of years of history, and now these perceptual lenses working itself out from duality into unity. Now there's supposedly, so that the forces of duality are still trying to throw up snares and still trying to throw up divisive memes, thought forms, but it's more and more difficult because they don't survive in these higher frequencies of energy and consciousness as we go through the galactic equator. And that's why about 100 years before Earth goes through the galactic equator on each of its turns, the higher extraterrestrials show up, because they know that when we pass through that, our frequencies increase, and the separation between the dimensions, the third dimension that we are in of time-space, and the fourth dimension, which has a whole number of octaves, or energetic bands within which intelligent civilizations live. This is how parallel universes are constructed. They show up about 100 years before because they know that they can have more access to our dimension then, and they can help us evolve more. Because in the universe and in the multiverse, creation is highly decentralized. In other words, it's not, quote, a single source that is helping us, although it is the source field, but other civilizations in sort of as caregivers are helping us. More evolved people, they've been on, they're on the further along the path, so they're helping us evolve and helping. If they're predator civilizations that come in, well, they help, take them out. What occurred, we're told, is that the council, the advanced galactic civilizations, they have the ability to scan forward and backward in time, and they saw that about 300 to 400 years in advance of now, if unchecked, the gray and Draco reptilian occupation of our planet would lead to a great tyranny in this sector of the multiverse, of our galaxy even. And so it was determined right after 9/11, which was actually orchestrated from 4D. The September 11th attacks were orchestrated by the Orion Greys and the Draco Reptilians. And you can go to some of my articles on exopolitics.com and you'll see some of the proof of that interdimensional intervention in 9/11, i.e., exopolitics is based on the scientific method. So we just don't make assertions in belief systems, but rather we provide empirical proof for everything that we're saying. So it was determined that they had to intervene now so that this great tyranny in the galaxy would not arise. And they traced it back to Earth and to the Orion Gray and Reptilian occupation here, and their manipulation of the elite. Some of the royal families, some of the financial elite, some of the governments, which are really the ones that are, pulling the strings. So now that structure that we call the Illuminati or some other power structure, they don't have fourth dimensional backup of the Greys and the Reptilians. So that's why the transformation is going to be much easier. So that's why we have a good foundation and basis to be optimistic. And the most important thing is that we're on a positive timeline. If you look at time, you can say that it's actually lines or kind of lanes on a highway. And some of the information that we've gotten, both from colleagues of mine like Andrew D. Bashago, who was actually a childhood participant in time travel in the Department of Defense secret time travel program. And
As a child?
As a child.
Wow.
He's been to the year 2045. He used to have to go. They would send him to the year 2045 to pick up time scrolls prepared by the future, by a forward time base in the future, to bring back to 1971 to help the present get to the future. So time travel has also been misused from a political standpoint, but all of that's being worked out. So we have sound, and there's a thing called time science. In other words, time, like space, is a dimension, and you can manipulate it, you can travel in it, and one analogy is that, say, we would have a number of lanes, and each lane is a particular timeline, and a main one down the middle. And to one side are increasingly negative or catastrophic timelines, and another side increasingly positive. And I believe that this has to do with the energetic frequency. And so those that are trying to destabilize our timeline are using a science, using fear and conflict, and to veer off into a catastrophic timeline where there's more catastrophe. And in a positive timeline, which we can affect with our positive thoughts, the consciousness of humans is very powerful. And there are empirical experiments where 7,000 people meditating reduced the crime rate in Washington, D.C. visibly. In other words, what you're doing is you're affecting the source field. And so if one affects, the more one goes into positive timelines, then the more, the more heaven, the more earth becomes like heaven. The more one goes into negative timelines, the more earth becomes like a hell. And
like we were giving it a real mess with our thoughts.
Yeah. So probably one of the most powerful things that people in Israel could do could be to meditate and put out a unitary, meditate to affect the source field with unity consciousness, because then it's affecting it's affecting all of the source field. I mean, if it works in Washington, D.C., why wouldn't it work in Israel? What you're doing.
One of the very special days that we're just coming out of is Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
Yom Kippur in the Jewish tradition is a day which all the Jewish people go to the synagogues and pray, to be, to forgive one another, and to be forgiven by the source, by God, of all bad things that they're, probably did even without knowing. So Yom Kippur is a very, very, very strong energetic day that we just had last Saturday. So it's been very, very powerful, and I felt it personally. And like you said, maybe to call, to put a call on the internet for like what you suggested on the 28th of October to be a meditating day, and the 11/11 also. So this call, I think, would touch many people who are actually light workers and believe that this kind of work could actually affect us all in the planet.
Yeah, exactly. So that is probably one of the most powerful things that committed people and aware people in Israel can do, is to meditate and bring their light to change the source field and to bring it over more toward unity and a positive timeline.
Amen. I wish,
No, that all that's what it is, and so that is it's just moving forward on that, and 2 people, 3 people in these studies, scientific studies, 7,000 people meditating actually brought the crime rate of Washington, D.C., which is a high crime rate city, brought it down.
You know that We have a captive in Gaza, Gilad Shalit.
Uh-huh.
And Gilad Shalit is just about coming back home to Israel.
Oh, good.
They've just
Good, yeah.
Yeah, he's been there for a few years, and the whole country were tortured by his captivity.
Right. Right.
In Hamas places. So this is, I believe that if Gilad Shalit is coming back home alive, it means for all the Jewish people that some kind of work has been done, because his name actually has a lot of secret meanings. Like Shalit. Yeah, Shalit holds it inside of it the words Shali. Shali means mine, like you said, mine and yours. Like we feel each other as the other and not as a part of one unity.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that a big secret is now being covered up if he's coming back home alive. Like we really have done work to upgrade this kind of awareness to come above this. Like there was a real a lot of people like really cried and asked the government, please bring back Gilad Shalit. Like he's been there, and like no one would care that he's there, and we're all suffering actually. So now maybe the days are bringing also good news about that too.
Good. Yeah. So, right. And that is an inevitability because this transition, today is October 14th, 2011, and this transition will be going over the next couple of years, and probably the world will be in a vastly different place 3 years from now or 10 years from now. Imagine what the world will be in 2021. I mean, it could be paradise on earth, because we could, and this is a scientific assertion, we could move it collectively over to a positive timeline. From, let's say, World War II, World War I was a catastrophic timeline. And then we just move it over to a positive timeline. And so it'll be vastly, vastly different. So the outlook is positive. And so that's why I say that the single most effective thing is really could be to transform the source field, and to have meditations of just putting out positive thought, to change that source field to one of unity and away from duality, and you're changing that whole source field around the Middle East is transforming. And it's a difficult task, but we're up to it. That we signed on for this duty when we agreed to incarnate here. Yeah, I mean that, You're smiling. That's good.
Yeah, like we were assigned for a lot of other things, also for the Draco reptilians and
exactly,
the Greys. Like we actually signed them for their mission.
Yeah,
like they are as they are a part of the dark.
Right.
They are being used.
Yeah.
By the light to do that.
Yeah.
So they are part of light as much as they are darkness.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard. It's always difficult for us, in this kind of incarnations to remember that the universe is apparently built on negative and positive forces and the interplay of those and maintaining balance in that situation. Maintaining an inner balance and awareness of that, and not becoming enmeshed in the mundane conflicts is difficult.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah, I agree with you. It's hard to see because we're all playing a part in this theater or whatever. We're taking parts, so we're having each our own personality in the part. But to be able to see the whole picture, this is the real, a hard thing to do.
Well,
The real challenge.
yeah, I I I really want to thank you for making this opportunity uh, available and for opening up uh, Exopolitics Israel and just allowing this conversation to take place, because I think it's a very optimistic and useful and kind of positive uh, conversation and awareness. So I want to thank you for doing that.
Oh, I thank you for your time. You know, exopolitics and all the things with the extraterrestrials in Israel. It is we're out of the picture actually. Like nothing happens for a long time. There are no extraterrestrial visits. We don't see any. Like it happens once in many years, and no one believe it, and the army takes care that that no evidence are left for us to be able to prove or to say anything about it. So all what we see is things from United States, Canada, all around the world, but nothing actually is happening in here.
In terms of
So
UFO sightings in that
yeah,
area.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that is one thing that perhaps you could correct also, because what we have done here in Vancouver, for example, and we've done it down in various other places, such as Mount Adams and the Iseti Ranch, is we go down. If you have a group uh, a group meditation, or just your mind's focusing, like for example here in Vancouver, we went to the beach here, and there was you know uh, a number of us there. There was a painter, a friend of ours who's an artist. She's a very advanced Buddhist artist, very close to the Dalai Lama. And another was my wife. My wife is a psychic and a psychotherapist. And then another person was John Kelly, who is uh, the UFO examiner. He's a UFO expert here from Vancouver, and myself. And we went and we meditated and chanted, and suddenly the UFOs came in and were flying over us. I.e., what one does is one creates the conditions for then the civilizations that are in the next dimension over to come through, to create what I call wormholes or interdimensional portals, and then to come through. We live in a dimensional ecology. My next book, it's the first book since I published Exopolitics, founding Exopolitics in the year 2000. It'll be coming out next year. Is called Dimensions, the Ecology of the Multiverse. So I imagine that you can have sky watches in Israel because they have them all over the world. You get in a circle and you go out at night down to the beach or someplace, that you feel that there's good energy, and you bring them in. We did that. I was invited down to Colima, Mexico, by the university there, and I delivered a lecture. But then that night we went up near the volcano, and we had about 300 people doing, and we brought in the UFOs, and we had brought cameras of Televisa. It was on the Mexican television channel, which is one of the largest networks in the world. We had the UFOs on Televisa because we had brought them in. So maybe one of the things is you could organize a sky watch there. I don't know, if you feel like it.
Wow, that sounds great.
Yeah. So there's kind of all ways to interact in this multidimensional reality.
I've just made contact with a ufologist in, the ufology, kind of group that they have.
Yeah.
And I really asked them, what's going on? Like, nothing is going on here. I said, yeah, nothing was going on here. We're sorry to tell you that. And it's a nice idea to bring it up and to try to do something like that.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to express myself to the audience of Israel.
Thank you very much. And we'll be in touch. We should do that maybe again.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.